acquire cultural awareness, she went to the UK. She also holds a degree for economics from Anglo University. At present, as a senior in American culture and literature at Bilkent University, she was granted merit scholarship. She is expected to go on to study in the field of cultural and translational studies. Now we can have
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to present William Faulkner's short story, Arrows for Emily. And I will analyze it in terms of gender discourse. I would like to start first with summary. The short story begins at the funeral for Miss Emily Grierson. Nobody has gone to her house for many years, apart from her Afro-American servant named Toby. Her house is old, but once was the best in the Jefferson town. Town folks had interesting relationship with Miss Emily since Colonel Sartoris, the old mayor, remitted for her taxes in 1894. But the newer generation became dissatisfied with this arrangement, and so they paid a visit to Miss Emily and tried to get her to pay the debt. She refused to accept that the old arrangement may not work any longer, and frankly refused to pay. 30 years before the tax issue, townspeople had a strange confrontation with Miss Emily about the bad smell emitting from her house. This was about 2 years after the death of her father, and short after her lover left her. Anyhow, the sting got stronger and complaints started. But the authorities didn't want to encounter with Emily about the problem. Therefore, one night they sprinkled lime around her house, and the smell eventually disappeared. Everybody felt sorry for Miss Emily when father died. He left only the house, but no money. When he died, Emily denied it for 3 days. The town assumed that she had just didn't want to let go of her debt. Although it can be argued that he had stolen her youth by refusing her suitors. Next, the story tracks and narrates that soon after her father died, Emily began dating Homer Barrow, who came to town for a sidewalk construction project. Town folks disapproved the affair and invited Emily's cousins to town to stop the relationship. One day, Emily is seen buying arsenic at the drugstore, and the people think that Homer is mistreating her, and that she plans to kill herself. Later, she buys a bunch of men's items. They think that she and Homer are going to get married. Homer leaves the town. The cousins leave the town. Then later, Homer returns. He is last seen when Toby is admitting him at the kitchen door. Miss Emily almost never leaves the home after that, except for a period of 7 years when she gives China painting lessons. Her hair turns gray, she gains weight, and she eventually dies in a downstairs bedroom that hasn't seen light for many years. The story returns back to where it began, at her funeral. Toby is Emily's servant, lets in people, and then leaves by the back door forever. After the funeral, and after Emily is buried, the townspeople go upstairs to break into the door, into the room that they know has been closed for 40 years. As soon as they enter, they realize that it is the rose-colored bridal room of Miss Emily. And inside, they find the skeleton of Homer Barrow, laid in attitude of an embrace. On the pillow next to Homer Barrow, they found an indentation of a head, and in the indentation, a long gray hair. And the story ends. Southern society. Eros for Emily, first published in 1930, is one of the most known works of William Faulkner, who is generally identified as a writer of Southern literature. The short story takes place in a fictional Southern town called Jefferson, at the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century, after the Civil War, a period during which Southern states of America were socioeconomically experiencing dramatic change. The slavery-based plantation life and aristocracy were leaving their places to a neat, slave-free society and modes of production. A Rose for Emily is ostensibly about contemporary society's anxieties on undergoing transformation and its reflection on their treatments of Miss Emily. William Faulkner, the tragically impervious Southern man, Miss Emily Grierson, who is not only repressed by Southern patriarchy, but also condemned by contemporary society, creates sympathy for a murderer, who actually turns out to be the real victim at the end of this story. Initially, the story is told with first person plural pronoun we as the collective voice of the town people. The narrator is limited on the present about the protagonist. He, she is therefore not able to penetrate the mind of Miss Emily. As the entire story is described based on general knowledge and ideas, it helps comprehending cultural tendencies and concerns. The narrator begins with the information of the death of Miss Emily and what she meant for the town people. Quote, alive, Miss Emily had been a tradition, a duty, a care, a sort of hereditary obligation upon the town. Unquote, reveals that she represents the old days, probably the days that are still in the memories of the people, and materialized with Miss Emily. The story is told in a non-chronological fashion of flashbacks, and the narrator continues with the house where Miss Emily lives. Quote, heavily like some style of 70s, set on what had been our most select streets. Unquote. Characteristics of the house reveal that Miss Emily comes from a southern, once a well-to-do family. We also gather from the story that since the death of her father, she has been living with an old Afro-American servant, Toby, whose sons never married Miss Emily until her death. It can be articulated from the loyalty of Toby that he was very likely a slave from her father's plantation. The house and Miss Emily are both portrayed as the symbols of the Old South, wealth and aristocracy, and their indifference to present becomes very obvious from the beginning. Decaying but still effective old cultural codes which haunt town people's perception of Miss Emily is central theme of the story. What is interesting about this story is its river-like narration style, based on the reflection of Jefferson's close observation of Miss Emily. The way she lives her life is considered being important and valuable information in terms of spreading among town dwellers. Society's care for her, likened to the Southern culture's opposition of Anglo-Saxon women. Long-lasting institutional slavery penetrated and shaped Southern culture of the United States in a way the entire community was constructed based on caste of master-slave relationship. Under such system, women, like blacks, became the object of stratification. While masters were enjoying freedom of act and dominion over both females and the slaves, misters and daughters expected to be Victorian type of women and hinged on a set of very strict class and race aspects. The white women were put on a place to protect her, turned out to be the principal virtue of the South. And some were simply sorry. In the American history, there are many lynching of black men occurred in many southern states, and some were simply linked on accusation directly into the face or daring to talk with white women. In case of Miss Emily, society is intimidated this time by not black masculinity, but by newer threat for southern women, that is the northerners. During the Reconstruction era, between 1865 to 1877, northern entrepreneurs moved to the south to work, are considered undesired personalities and culturally inferior class. Not surprisingly, narrator's description of Homer Baron carries similar characteristics with stereotype black male figure. Quote, a foreman named Homer Baron, a Yankee, a big dark, ready man with a long, deep voice and eyes brighter than his face. Unquote. When people see Miss Emily with him, they automatically utter poor Emily, which asserts Southern society's obsession with the fall of Southern belle, and Faulkner's challenges of stereotype womanhood with his unsubmissive protagonist, who insists on living her life by taking back what has denied from her by Southern patriarchy described as, quote, Griersons had themselves a little too hard for what they really were. None of the men were good enough for Miss Emily and such. Anglo demonstrates her restricted ladyhood. Her struggle with imposed identity makes some codes uncompatible in terms of cultural motivations related to aristocracy lady. In fact, society's treatment of Miss Emily is closely related to their expectations from a southern woman. The narration reveals that the town people expect Miss Emily to live by southern cultural gender code that puts white women on a high but narrow pedestal. However, Miss Emily contrasts with them, firstly by not showing proper mourning after her father's death, as well as cutting her hair, which symbolizes liberation. And secondly, by starting a relationship with northerner Homer Baron later on. Town folks think, quote, of course a Grierson would not think seriously of a northerner, a day laborer, unquote. But there are still others, older people, who say that even grief could not cause a real lady to forget nobles obliged. Diana Roberts argues in her book, Faulkner and the Southern Womanhood, that, quote, the idol has been broken, but its fragments still haunted the South, and though Southern women might be no longer queens and saints, but they were not allowed to be fresh and blood humans either, unquote. In the case of Miss Emily, it can be articulated that town people expected her to remain as the idol of the South. Yet Miss Emily's disrespect of norms in an unforeseen act by a Southern lady. By opposing their expectations, Miss Emily also frees herself from the oppressive past, especially its patriarchy. The narrator's description of her with her father and Homer Baron has an interesting commonality. Both men hold horsewhip in their hands, which symbolizes oppressive patriarchy. This, I believe, leads to the fact that Miss Emily substitutes the lingering father figure with that of Yankee Homer Baron. However, she gains the control over by killing him. That is yet another thing, starkly contradicting with socially constructed traits of Southern woman. Biljana Oklovchik's argument of, quote, the Southern belle was now used to mythologize Southern myths since the virtues she should have been the embodiment of beauty, passivity, submissiveness, virginity, and asexuality proved to be the unstable and destructive property, unquote, perfectly resonates with the uncanny act of Miss Emily. Rebellious and stubborn Miss Emily causes increase in society anxieties about gender roles in an unstable period. From the outset of the story, the town people are seen both hankering and spy for the past, and it comes to life with their judgment of Miss Emily. Unlike an individual human being, she turns to be a stereotype object, helping them to deal with their past. For example, code. Thus, she passed from generation to generation, dear, inescapable, impervious, tranquil, and perverse. Unquote. Demonstrates her nostalgia, their nostalgia for the tradition of old, as well as their spite and hatred for the privilege of the past that are identical with Miss Emily's, who stands as a stubborn reminder of it, therefore judged by the town dwellers. Even after her father's death, they express Schadenfreude by saying, quote, being left alone and pauper, she had become humanized. Now she too would know the old thrill and old despair of Penny, more or less. Unquote. Financially failing Miss Emily, who gives China painting lessons in her old age, both satisfies and delights the town. As a single reminder of the old days, wealth and privilege, deterioration in her economics helped them to accept irrevocable change about the direction of history. Even going too far, they express their desire that she kills herself, owing to Homer Warren. And it shows how people think too far while dealing with Miss Emily. Miss Emily, after a long and isolated life, dies naturally at the age of 74, and nobody even brings flowers to her funeral. The narrator describes her funeral as they, her cousins, had the funeral on the second day, with the town coming to look at Miss Emily beneath a mass of bold flowers. I believe this line is essential to understand the title of the story. A rose for Emily, all along, folklore implies that Miss Emily, as the symbol of Old South, judged by the ideals of people who are between the old and the new, is excessively mistreated. With a single rose, he puts her back to the pedestal, but also humanizes her as a murderer. After her funeral, the town goes back to her house to end the last mystery about Miss Emily. It is 40 years unused upstairs room. They found out it is nothing than the rose-colored bridal room of Miss Emily, and inside they find the skeleton of Homer Warren laying in the act of an embrace, as the last scene from the story reveals Miss Emily's tragic love story. As a writer of the South, William Faulkner offers her a rose, from whom the Southern patriarchy and contemporary society denied. In the very end, her long iron gray hair falls onto the pillow where, next to Homer Warren lying that body reveals her loneliness and longing for love. With its grotesque ending, the story shows the tragedy of a woman who is judged by the ideals of two South. In conclusion, A Rose for Emily, with its decaying house, corpses, bad smell, most importantly with its eccentric Southern lady, provides a strong social critique about destructive qualities of painful cultural transformation. Confused feelings and anxieties about the past and the present come into existence with treatment by townspeople of Miss Emily. By offering a rose for a slayer, William Faulkner portrays a female who is actually victim of both worlds. Her struggle to liberate herself from the society's expectations in terms of gender roles and economic concerns both irritates and pleases the townfolks. By applying built-in elements, the writer shows the tension caused by undergoing change and its victimizing power, owing to restricted expectations from Miss Emily. Thank you.
Now we will have our second speaker, Murat Arslan. Murat Arslan was born in Dursun in 1989. He graduated from Lanca Foreign Language Intensive High School in 2006. He has been studying in the Department of English Language and Literature at Istanbul University since 2007. He is a senior student. His main interests are short story, 20th century British drama, absurd drama, Victorian novel, and fairy tales. He has been writing short stories since his childhood and he got the third prize in Minemurgan Short Story Competition in 2010. In addition to this, he likes singing, learning new languages and cultures. He can speak English and a little German. He wants to get his master's degree on English language and literature next year and start his academic career. Now we can have.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for participating here and coming to listen to me. I'll just present my research paper titled Happily or Probably Ever After, Stereotypical Gender Roles in Grimm's Fairytales. Brothers Grimm and their famous fairy tale collection titled Children's and Household Tales are known not only in Germany but also all around the world. Fairy tales are considered to be bedtime stories, and it is believed that Grimms have always managed to amuse the children with their fairy tales, including princesses, witches, and fairies. While these fairy tales are giving moral lessons, they teach being complicit to the society and show the proper stereotypical gender roles that need to be maintained in society during the 18th and 19th century. In fairy tales, gender rules are definitely what society imposes on the characters, how to behave, how to comply, how to maintain that order. As Jane Sykes claims, quote, the male hero becomes handsome and learns to be active, competitive, industrious, cunning and acquisitive, unquote, and the female hero learns to be passive, obedient, self-sacrificing, hardworking, passionate and straight-laced. These binary oppositions between two genders are not directly depicted. However, those implications are clear enough while reading them. One of the tales that show this distance and difference between gender roles is Rosebud, which is also known as Sleeping Beauty in Carol's version. The princess who is wounded by a spindle wakes up with the princess kiss. Everything is delineated very romantically. The spindle is a Phyllis symbol and she has to keep her chastity until the proper time comes. This rose is kept among the thorns surrounding the palace, and this palace is quite significant for gender roles. Just like Jane Sykes says, female hero's jurisdiction is the home castle. Hence, we have that bold male hero and the passive damsel who is waiting for being emancipated. The same imagery is also sustained in Jorinda and Jorinda. The old fairy captivates Jorinda, the female figure, and Jorinda saves her from the maiden's castle. Here, having another female as an evil figure is quite interesting. The old fairy, just like the fairy in Rosebud, tries to suppress the female figure until the male hero goes on a journey and saves the damsel in distress. According to Max Lithy, this wandering is an impression of freedom and strengthens the male hero. Since courage and gallantry are crucial, male domination or male justice is provided in the end. This male domination is endued while the woman is represented as the woman, badgering, and this leads to a sort of othering between wife and husband. In The Fisherman and His Wife, the fisher goes to the seaside to report his wife's never-ending wishes to the fish and says, "For Alice, my wife, the plague of my life." Here, the woman is associated with plague, something disastrous. The real message underlying it, indeed the punishment of gluttonous wife, the husband figure who always does whatever his wife demands. Both of them are punished and they end up in a ditch. Hence, marriage and couple relationship must be in order. When something is not proper according to the society or religion, where the members will find themselves, is nothing but a ditch. In fairy tales, the passive woman figure's activity only in her own field, domestic works. In Frederick and Catherine, Frederick goes to work in the field and demands his wife to cook the meal. Likewise, in King Grizzlybeard, the wife is the cook again, and she makes the fire. If she cannot do this, that presents a problem, which can be seen in King Grizzlybeard's case. A princess full of pride rejects a suitor by making fun of his beard. In this tale, the bride is punished with ill treatment. Interestingly enough, the princess is castigated by the male here again with domestic works. It is possible to say that these domestic works are both an ordeal and a responsibility. Therefore, learning wisdom is fairly substantial in fairy tales, and mostly the wisdom belongs to the men, while the emotions belong to the women. Although those splendid castle, magnificent princes, or fairies are spellbinding, it comes as no surprise that the world of fairy tales is a male-dominated realm, centralizing the men. The women have to compete to take a stand right beside the men. As Jack Sykes remarks, woman can exist as long as she complies with the patriarchal ideology. Complicity, which is something pertinent for the society during the 18th and 19th century, is devoted at the end of the tales. It is not hard to follow the tracks of these generals in the tale A-130, which is also known as Cinderella. By all means, everybody has heard about the girl whose mother dies and has to live with a stepmother and stepsisters. At the beginning of the tale, the mother says, quote, "Always be a good girl, and I will look down from heaven and watch over you," unquote, before she dies. The problem here is the question of being a good girl. Absolutely, being a good girl is a role that is settled on her shoulders. And that's what she does till the end of the tale. She gets the prize, unquestionably. Contrary to this goodness, we have ill will, represented by the stepsisters, and they are the ones who are punished in the end, since, quote, "they were fair in face but full at heart," unquote, as the tale states. Being invited to the king's feast, the stepsisters start to prepare for it by making A-130 Cinderella, brush their shoes, comb their hair, and tie their sashes. These are ritual preparations to lure the king. Apart from the patriarchal order, man is the chooser, the gazer. Despite all her pleas, A-130 is rejected by the evil stepmother. She gives A-130 some back-breaking tasks, such as picking the peas out of the ash heap, and all are done by the help of some animals, and these tasks are again domestic ones. Here it is possible to reason that, once again, wit is associated with men and domestic labor is associated with women. She still has to suffer more to be humiliated by her stepsisters on the excuse that she does not have clothes and cannot dance. Indeed, it is emphasized these two roles of women, dancing and charm, are not enough. A woman should have that goodness as well as a man. The prince, almost mesmerized by A-130, searches for her lady taking the golden slipper that is left. The stepsisters' efforts to make their feet into the slipper is vain, since they are either too big or too small. The moment they realize it, the stepmother gives her a knife and asks her to cut her toe, saying, quote, "When you are a queen, you will not care about those. You will not want to go on foot," unquote. Explicitly, the stepmother denotes the importance of being a queen, being dependent on a man, prospering. For prosperity, she can renounce her toes, her organs, even her freedom. Speaking of the male hero, the prince is definitely active in his absence, since everything turns around him on the surface. From the beginning of the tale till the end, we have the male characters ambiguously, the father and the prince. The father going to the fair is the patriarch in the house, and he is the one who asks the household what he should bring them. Domestic life is for this woman, staying at home, keeping the hearth warm. However, the father is on a journey, going to the outside world. On the other hand, the female character's promise is either castle or home, as Jack Sykes remarks. When the female members of the family stay at home, the father works and goes on a journey, the other life. In addition to this, marriage is an essential factor in fairy tales with regards to both male and female characters. In order to maintain these binary positions, keep the balance and order in the society, marriage is inevitable. The reader cannot know the real reason why A-130's father marries after his first wife's death, just like Snowdrop's father does. Yet, it is not impossible to interpret that family is an important institution for the society. Clearly, his father figure cannot survive unless there is no domestic life as supporter and wife. At the end of the tale, we have A-130 and the king's son married too. It is almost like an invisible gist in the tales in order to indoctrinate some certain rules and moral lessons. Another selling fairy tale that has implications of gender roles is Snowdrop, which is known as Snow White in girls' version. And the tale is more or less the same. The tale starts with the birth of Snowdrop and her description. Snowdrop, like other beautiful female characters, is purity with white skin, red lips, and black hair. These are attractive qualities that are attributed to the female and expected in these male-oriented tales. This is also acceptable for the male heroes now that they are charming, bold, and handsome. Snowdrop's father marries another wife, and the queen starts to question her position in front of her mirror and says, quote, "Tell me, Glass, tell me true. Of all the ladies in the land, who is the fairest? Tell me, who?" To some extent, she fancies being adorable, and she reasserts herself in this way, considering this is her stand in the society. On another level, this is a sort of beauty contest from the queen's point of view. She tries to suppress her rival in beauty. However, Bruno Bettelheim relates this situation to narcissism and jealousy of the queen and characterizes this struggle as an inevitable one. The concept of fairness is significant in this context. These women in fairy tales do not try to be fair for themselves. They do it for patriarchy. They are taught to behave. They comb their hair, wear their best outfit, dance and do this and that. All these are for order. They do it because they have to do it. The queen must be the fairest, though on a narcissistic level. It is pointed out this male-oriented world forces women to be fair in the realm of fairy tales one more time. Thereafter, we have the queen shape-shifting a little trick and kill Snowdrop. With this quality of shape-shifting, the queen adds evilness to her features. The things she uses so as to kill Snowdrop are respectively tight laces, a poisoned comb, and a poisoned apple. Laces are used to shape human body, or comb is used to shape hair. All these things are related to the woman's position in the society, and they grow into tools to kill a woman again, even though it creates a boomerang effect and kill the queen at the end of the tale. Nevertheless, the poisoned apple is something different from the others. Apple reminds us the story of Adam and Eve in the Bible and their relationship with this apple. Just as Eve was deceived by Satan, Snowdrop is deceived by the evil queen here, and this naivety is in other respect loaded on women. When Snowdrop takes shelter in the dwarf's cottage, she is the one who cooks, washes, knits, spins, and does everything relevant to house work. While Snowdrop, the lady in the house, does this, the dwarfs go out all day to work and they bring gold and silver since they are miners. Just like Frederick, who goes to work in fields, or Ashankutel's father, who goes to the fair. These dwarfs go to work in mines, they are workers. Snow White is kept in the house, though it is of her own accord, and she does what a woman does. She complies as the dwarfs comply with their rules. After the divorce, male members save Snowdrop from the evil queen's first two temptations. It is the prince who saves her, just as the prince who saves Rosebud from her slip. Another prince, another male character saves Snowdrop. Thus, there is that savior image of the male again. With respect to the end of the tale, it is not a surprise to see the prince and Snowdrop married. The happy ending is formed on the marriage of the couple again, and they are tied to the social institution. The evil queen is choked with passion and dies, which shows this boomerang effect of malignancy. Snowdrop is exposed to evil and suffers. However, everything recovers in the end. Having carried out their roles properly, the women and the men who comply with society are rewarded with a happy ending. Most fairy tales end with a happy ending, which generally uses the imagery of marriage. J.R. Tolkien uses the term consolation of the happy ending, which refers to this. He believes that all fairy tales should have happy endings and defines them as a sudden and miraculous grace. In the first place, this term consolation is quite comprehensible, since heroes in the tales suffer and they are rewarded in the end. Yet, his necessity to have these happy endings is significant as well. It is like an award, a prize for their good behavior. The hero is given an award, just like a bunch of flowers that is given to the players after the play. In Grimm's fairy tales, there are many aspects related to the real life in an unreal world. However, the theme of gender roles is a clear one with subliminal messages. Fairy tales generally end with the phrase, happily ever after. On the other hand, this happiness stems from those accepted behaviors, roles, and actions. After everything the main characters experience, they live properly ever after. That happiness is what society wants, what characters seek as happiness. The masculinity, activeness of men, and the femininity, passivity of women are asserted and maintained. Consequently, that property brings along its happiness in the end, representing those gender roles in a fantastic work. Thank you.
Now, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Any questions?
No question.
I have a question for Murat. I read interpretations that claim that fairy tales about heroines can also be interpreted as continuations of the pagan narratives about goddesses. So they are, although they are mingled with later ethics, they can also be interpreted to be about like women's importance and women's power. So, what would you like to say about it?
In fact, we cannot say just directly, okay, this just stems from the pagan culture, because there are some really Christian elements also in fairy tales. So maybe some of them, yeah, you're right. So they just come from the pagan culture, but in an explicit way, this importance may be subverted again. Because yes, for instance, if we care or consider about the princess, she's a reward. Maybe that can be evaluated as something really precious. But apart from that, don't we see all the time the female characters just the subverted ones, or the reward, or the possession? For instance, in Snowdrop, in Rosebud, sorry, the Sleeping Beauty. So while she is lying in her tomb, let's say, the prince comes and says, "I want it." So that it again something possession. Because that's my interpretation. But you're right, yes.
Maybe I can add to that conversation over there, because I personally think that the Christian elements are not very obvious in Grimm Brothers tales. But if you think that still the Christian elements are there to force over women, it could be, the power that the Christianity gives to patriarchal societies. Therefore, man can possess everything; he has the right to do so. And as we can also see in the other fairy tales of Grimm Brothers, the women who does not fit in the shoes, as in the stepsister's case, they are very ugly portrayed. They're like witches. They're like the bad goddesses in pagan culture. So we can say that maybe the Christian witches.
Why not? But again, that's coming just again to the point that Christianity asserts. Something divine, let's say. So yeah, you're right. Or either Maria. So she was just made from his race. Yeah.
The authority, the male authority.
This time I have a question for Dilek. In Rose for Emily, although the society and social values limit Emily's life quite a bit, still they let her get away with murder. Like they don't actually interfere with her private life. So, what do you say about that?
Actually, when I was writing, I thought about it, why they didn't go after what happened on the ground. Did he return back or where he is? And actually, the story can be analyzed from other perspectives too, but because Overworld also represents bisexual man, because he is seen with men also. But that would be very long argument, because both gender roles and sexual preferences will be, argued in this. But I would like to focus only on what caused Emily to live such a kind of life. And yes, they didn't go after it because they believed maybe he deserved that because of his sexual orientation. And the story also can be studied from that perspective, and it can be another way of analyzing this story. I believe it's very rich story. There can be many different analyses about it.
You finished? Sorry, you finished, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a question about fairy tales. Do you think the golden shoe, or did you say crystal shoe?
No, I said golden.
Golden.
Crystal is in Pearl's version.
Okay.
It's used golden.
Okay, I know the crystal version.
And there are so many elements that is added up to Pearl's version just to make it more imaginative.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think it is a symbol of marriage, maybe, or it's
There
a
are
chain
so
to be
many-
tied around the feet of Cinderella, maybe?
Yeah, why not? But there are so many interpretations on that. You know, golden slipper is also seen something like intercourse. Yeah, because why not? But golden, maybe that just fits to Cinderella. Yeah, so she's, let's say, ascendant. She's something very precious, maybe. And just golden is for her.
She's also limited.
Maybe, yes.
In the end.
Yes,
Yeah. Thank you.
I think.
Any more questions? Maybe I can say this shoe issue. Can we say that shoe actually represents women's traditional role in society, that only proper woman fits in, but the others who doesn't do any housework or stuff?
Yes, I was going to emphasize on that point, but I just didn't want to extend it longer. So yes, there are so many elements that we can just consider in that way. But yes, shoe. Only the proper woman can get that, and only the proper woman could be the prince. And in the end of that fairy tale, the birds come and sing, "No, that's not the correct. That's not the proper bride. Just switch it." So that's the thing that is pointed out in the tale.